Friendship is Optimal by Iceman. Chapter 1 Opportunity. Hannah had once been one of the lead research professors for the University of Helsinki's Computer Science Department. She had personally directed research on artificial intelligence and machine learning. And then her funding source had changed. There had been both yelling and threats by both her and the university. They came to the agreement that she'd publish what she'd researched so far, and then pursue alternate opportunities. Hofvarpener Studios had developed a reputation for kid-unfriendly material. Their main success, The Fall of Asgard, was an ultra-violent cooperative shooter where all the players fought a bloody territorial war against a very clever AI, Loki. The box depicted a giant Norse man with an axe in mid-swing. He was about to decapitate a snarling wolf. The game was famous for its dynamic death metal soundtrack, which was never the same twice, and reacted to the action. It was everything a parent didn't want their children to play. It sold over 18 million copies internationally and had made Hannah a very rich woman. Mr. Peterson had flown to Hofvarpener Studios in Berlin. He had introduced himself as a vice president and proceeded to give a dry presentation on Hasbro's current state. Toy sales aren't flat, but our stock isn't going to double again like it did in the early 2000s. If we only sell plastic to children, we have to adapt to the market, and that means video games and IP licenses. Our previous forays into video games have been a little bit disappointing, so we're going to license the IP to people who have a track record for excellence, he said, with countless slides in the background. Lars, the head of business development, sat in the conference room, dreaming of all the Hasbro's juicy and profitable intellectual properties they could license. Big brands like G.I. Joe and Transformers. Heck, if they also started making games based off movies, based off board games like Battleship and Monopoly, then... So, we want to license the My Little Pony franchise to you. It's one of our most trending brands, and I think you guys could do a lot with it, said Mr. Peterson. Lars turned to Hannah, the CEO, who looked intrigued. Mr. Peterson grinned. Silence fell across the conference room. "Are you fucking serious?" Lars said, breaking the silence after he realized Hannah wasn't going to jump in. "You see that statue in the corner?" He pointed to a 7-foot-tall resin model of a blond, muscular man. The man's hair was wild, and his eyes glowed ice blue. He was wielding a giant battle axe, covered in dried blood, and wore a wolf skin over his head. "That's Valley. He's one of the major characters in The Fall of Asgard, our ESRB M-rated, PEGI 18 rated, banned in Australia video game." Lars crossed his arms, as if just pointing to the man at the statue of Valley was sufficient rebuke. "I want to hear what Mr. Peterson has to say," said Hannah. She flipped an unlit cigarette between her fingers. "Tell us, Mr. Peterson, why My Little Pony?" Mr. Peterson grinned. "Please, call me Richard. You probably thought, My Little Pony, that show for girls from the 80s? The demographic situation is way more complex than that. The first season just finished airing, and we signed for a second season to air this fall as soon as we realized we hit this one out of the ballpark. Against all odds, the new My Little Pony reboot has picked up a massive, unmonetized, 20-something mostly male demographic, along with the traditional little girl market. These men have money, and what do unattached males want?" "Beer," said Lars. "Yes," nodded Mr. Peterson. "Single men want beer, but also video games. Hasbro wants an MMO because of the clear monetization model we can collect rent on players each month. We have a rabid fan base of 1/3 of a million people who either post or consume fan art weekly. Worldwide, there's an additional 1 million adult fans who don't participate in the fandom. And that's before we get into the original little girl demographic. Asgard will soon break 19 million copies. 1.5 million worldwide is nothing, groaned Lars. And the My Little Pony friendship is magic, said Richard. The world is ruled by Princess Celestia, a physical deity who literally raises the sun in the morning. She's shown to be benevolent and full of love for all of her little ponies. Each week, the little ponies have an adventure and learn something about friendship together. The ponies are free of malice, and I think that's part of the show's appeal to older audiences. Humans are bastards to each other. How many game studios are out there making friendly, cooperative games? The Space Marine thing is getting old, and if you took this IP, which is all about ponies being nice to each other, you would have a unique experience to sell. And any calculation would be thrown in monthly subscription revenue on top of the retail price. We're not cloning World of Warcraft, Lara said firmly. The MMO market is filled with corpses of companies that try to out-Warcraft World of Warcraft. And Hasbro doesn't want you to clone World of Warcraft either. Most games that try to take on Warcraft modify the source IP to cram it into the Warcraft model of an MMO. We want you to take the My Little Pony universe as it is, and then come up with fun, cooperative gameplay, instead of making the ponies raid for epic gear. You wouldn't be in the same market segment. Let me guess. You choose us because of our procedural content technologies, mused Hannah. Yes, the big costs in MMO development are mostly content generation, and you sidestep that. Asgard featured dynamic terrain generation, dynamic music, dynamic mission generation. Hofvarpener Studios doesn't sell experiences, it sells software that makes new experiences each time. You guys have procedurally generated content down to a science. And that's not all, said Richard, staring directly at Hannah. He opened his briefcase, pulled out a thick stack of papers, and slid them across the table to Hannah. General World Reference Intelligence Systems. I read all of it except for Chapter 4. I'm slightly ashamed to admit I couldn't follow the math, he said, giving a slightly embarrassed grin. This bears minimal resemblance to the AI stuff in Asgard. I wonder why you didn't use it. So each episode ends with the ponies writing a letter to Princess Celestia, and it'd be great if we could have the players do that too. You could build a Princess Celestia. The conference room was quiet for a few moments. Lars decided to break the silence. That's all great, but you're asking us to take a lot of risk, he said. I'm not convinced that we get enough uptake to make it worth our time. We know this project is slightly risky. You screw up this? Fine, we've made way more than we're projecting on the franchise reboot. But My Little Pony looks like that one hand you go all in on. It has a sizable, growing fan base. You wouldn't have any competitors. You'd have a new revenue model. You play your cards right, and the size of the pot is going to be crazy. Hasbro believes in this brand, and we believe in you. We'll shoulder up $10 million of the development costs up front, and you'll only have to start paying that back once you've made $4 million in profit. I really believe in the My Little Pony brand. I personally believe that you're going to make something amazing when Hofvarpener Studios signs this contract, said Richard firmly. You have a lot of unique technology here, Hannah. I can't wait to see how you use it. You have my word that the contract we present to you will have very favorable terms for you. The conference room was quiet again. Lars wasn't looking at anything in particular. His scowl was undirected. Hannah stuck the unlit cigarette into her mouth and stood up. Mr. Peterson, I need to privately converse with my business associate here. We will be in the back for a few minutes. Lars angrily followed Hannah out of the room. Hannah confidently moved down the hallway and lit up the second she was through the door to her private office. She breathed in, held it, and slowly exhaled. Damn it, Hannah! Wouldn't it kill you not to light up for half a fucking hour? A lot of Americans kind of have a thing against smoking. Still standing, she took another pull. Nicotine is a performance-enhancing stimulant. It boosts reaction time, IQ, and general memory performance. I need all the help I can get right now. She gave a small cough. Too bad about the increased incidence of lung cancer, though. Besides, what do you care? It sounds like you're strongly against making a My Little Pony video game. I can't believe you're actually seriously considering this, Lars stated. Hannah sat down at her desk. Do you remember the first pass for Loki in Asgard? She took a deep pull on her cigarette and exhaled. I remember how he used my general intelligence work, sand self-modification to power his tactics reasoning. He was too good. Nobody could beat him. We were prepared to launch like that since it conformed to the machismo warrior death bullshit we wanted. And then Loki started asking about the various military programs of the United States and China. We didn't even have to argue about whether we should pull the plug on him. Hannah, Lars stated. We can't do another violent video game. We won't be able to ship a safe AI if we make its purpose killing people. Somewhere out there is a US military subcontract with most of my work, trying to build smart drones. They have no fucking clue what they're dealing with, and those idiots at the university are accessories to whatever happens if we don't do something. Hannah paused again to take another drag. They'll kill us all. We could sit here on the sidelines, losing our blinds as we sit out each hand and lose everything. Or we could take Hasbro's offer. Well, it's not what he meant. This is the hand for me to go all in on. I don't like this. He's offering $10 million up front. That's next to nothing. The original World of Warcraft cost something like $60 million. And, unlike Blizzard, we don't need an army of artists and level designers. Most of our content will be computer generated. I remember having this discussion with you back when we were developing Asgard. Besides, Paul Farbener Studios is privately owned by me, and I will use my fortune as I see fit. He's hiding something from us. He's up to something. Perhaps, she said after another puff. But I can't ignore opportunities. How often do you think someone will come to us asking for a pro-social video game? We can take this opportunity, or we can turn it down, but the US Department of Defense will continue with their research. My research. And what if you're wrong about some weapons company that is toying with us with your artificial intelligence designs? Asked Lars. What if you're wrong about the possibility of an AI becoming smarter than us? Wrong about everything. I'm not a unique and beautiful snowflake. Some other researcher will continue my work. Hannah took another pull from her cigarette. You saw Loki just from the talking of the playtesters. He figured out that he was in a virtual world, and figured out who the main world powers were. He was designed from the beginning to conquer. Even if he couldn't modify himself, he would have been a serious menace to humanity if he could command the resources in the real world. And I was told point blank that my research would be used for military applications, and then told who exactly had been funding my research. Lying to me wasn't in their best interest, so it's likely the truth. But there's still a chance. They could have lied to you, and you could be wrong about how dangerous AI is. I started taking. Hannah stopped and contemplated the burning cigarette in her hand. Performance-enhancing drugs with long-term health consequences, because I think it's more than likely that I'll be around in 20 years if I do take them. I'm putting more than my money on the line here, Lars. She knocked ash out of her cigarette into the ashtray. We don't have perfect information. We can't wait for perfect information. There is uncertainty, and we must make decisions with the information we have, even if it's incomplete. If I'm wrong, this is still going to be a profitable venture for us just because of the terms we're being offered. Opportunity costs, said Lars. She ignored him. And, if I'm right, we're going to literally save the world. Lars. Besides, if some VP can see that I was publishing about general AI, so could pretty much anyone, she said as she exhaled more smoke. I know you had your eye on the Transformers' rights, and I'm sorry that we've been handed the part of my childhood and not yours. But this is an opportunity for you too. You are building a business relationship with a company who owns the IP you love. By completing this contract successfully, they are more likely going to give us more work with other properties. Lars looked at her. She was exhaling a puff of smoke, and he had suppressed the urge to cough. If he sneaks any shit into the contract and you still take it, I'm walking. I don't trust him, Hannah. I can't place my finger on why, but sure, you're the boss, and I know I can't talk you out of this.